right, good morning. I'm trying to find a way to share the link, but my thing is acting weird, so let's try this. Live. So what I wanted to do was, this morning I woke up, I had several things on my mind. Let's see, copy link, and put it here. Maybe that'll work. All right, there. If you want to come in, there you have it. I think. Maybe not. All right. I don't know. I'm trying to edit. Here, put it in the description. Show more. Description. Return. Paste. There. It should be in the description of the video. That's the best I can do right now. Nobody's watching anyways. They're over on Ethan's. So Ethan's talking about imagination, and we've been talking about imagination for a few days, and I have another place I want to go with it. It has to do with the way. Let's see. How about the unmanageable imagination, the collective imagination? So I was thinking about when I woke up this morning. I had seen, there's been a lot of, and I've seen this story trying to make its way around the internet for quite some time now. Actually, it's a story about the how do I say this? Let's just say there's a story about missing people. There's scientists. There's also murdered people, and there's a connection that's being drawn together by about those people. There's like 11 scientists or whatever, nuclear scientists. One of them was even working on like anti-gravity. And I gotta say, like, as soon as I heard this stuff, and this is, I think even months ago, I heard somewhere, I don't remember where I first heard the rumblings of this story, this, I don't know, whatever, call it conspiracy, call it whatever you want. But I remember seeing this and thinking, well, that's really strange. And so I want to connect that to the imagination. And I also want to connect it to, and thinking about that this morning, was highly distracted. I was doing my prayer practice this morning, and it was like a lot to work to get through my prayer practice this morning, because I was highly distracted by this this story, and in that, and thinking about that, what I find very interesting about the imagination or about consciousness is the ability to quickly float through images, associations, memory associations, possibilities, questions, fictions. All of these things are happening like like really fast as I'm and that as I'm thinking about consciousness and imagination. And so there's the aspect of using the imagination or the gift of consciousness or the spark of divinity, whatever that is, to um, to tell stories that are begging to be told, whether it's in fiction or whatever. But then there's the other aspect, and this is powers and principalities. So where does imagination and powers and principalities collide? And I think that uh, and I've thought a lot about all of this for many, many years. The things that happened in 9/11 and the different imaginings or narratives, potential. I mean, this even goes back. This even goes back to like JFK and stuff. So there's like a grooming of the imagination by these powers and principalities for decades, and like they move us closer and closer um, to a manageable position. And so and there's different aspects of that. I'm thinking about my experience with 9/11 was impactful, still is. In fact, I think a lot of this hermeneutic of suspicion that I have, this way of seeing the world, this filter that I have in seeing the world, is it's yeah, it's shaped my attitude. I don't even know if this thing is streaming out or not. Why should I care? I should just listen to Grim Grizz. Why care about any of this stuff, honestly? Let's see. Okay, it is playing. And the StreamYard link is in the description if you want to come on. All right. So, I'm thinking about the imagination as it relates to our perceptions on the ground about things. Rigsby, leave it. And how it shapes our interaction with the rest of the world. And so I find it difficult to tell a story here about this, but all I can do is kind of name elements of the story that will point to how I kind of see the world. So again, we have JFK. You have a myriad of conspiracies that have grown up around that event for decades and decades, and then 9/11 happens, and this a similar kind of attitude or approach has grown up around that story, which shapes its people. And then everything that happened with COVID, and then and then so all these stories that we see now, they become kind of believable and unbelievable at the same time, right? So I mean, this is how, like, we can look at kind of the Charlie Kirk situation and be like, well, what, and find it difficult to discern what is and what isn't fact or anything like that. And all of that is also, in the furnace, as well as, all of the other stories, whether they are, fiction stories, movies, books, television shows, all these different things, urban legends, opinions shared, and then also, opinions shared across the web. All these different things are shaping our imagination. And, like what I really love about books, when I read books or I listen to stories, the reason why I find them kind of superior is that they have to run through my mind's eye, and my mind's eye will build out the landscape, and I have to do some work to actually see the story, and so there's an investment that happens, and then in movies and film you have some of that, but not as much. That is more it's more of like a receiving of the story, and you get to build out some of the meaning, if you like, or interpretation, and but it's not, and so like all these different things. Okay, so this morning when I was being distracted in my prayer by this story of the scientists and things like this, there's a couple things that were crossing my mind. One of them was the telephone or the cell phone or this device, this communication device, is like each of us having our hand on the Ouija board. And when we're all doing this thing, when we're all doing this, we are kind of shaping what the Ouija board is trying to spell to us. And that's also, the power of suggestion, the power of our desires, our collective desires, and then the powers that called, these networks that are trying to siphon our attention so that they also get, they have benefits from that too. They get advertiser dollars, all these different kinds of things. So those are some of the ways that I'm thinking about the pitfalls of consciousness and why it's so important, I think, to best you can point your attention towards particular stories that will grow your desire in a particular way. So like that's why, again, I think when I kind of have my difficulties, my spiritual difficulties, what I mean by that, things like depression or any of those things. What I mean by that are the spiritual malady. What feeds the spiritual malady is kind of what happens to me is I kind of I go to sleep at the wheel, and I just kind of go into scroll mode. So I'm like, my hand is only on the Ouija board thing, only on the you know, and I don't, and so when I'm, uh, what's happening is I, like, when you watch a movie, like I said, when I watch movies or television, I receive a story. I don't have to build out a story, and then I derive all this different meanings. So when I'm not, like, really trying to, uh, when I'm not really submitting to, spiritual practices that are aimed towards Christ, uh, I'm a weak person, and it becomes very easy to kind of like drift off and be captured by these powers and principalities. Um, so what are some of the ideas I have around what are these powers and principalities up to? One of the things I've thought a lot about are the kind of like the different narratives that are in, let's say, the mainstream culture that, um, do their best to manage, the attention and, um, either chaotic or docile nature of the people who are consuming these narratives and stories. And so lately, like I think the last 10 years or whatever it's been, somewhere in that region, we've had a central figure in our stories, and I call him, I call Trump. To me, is kind of like the the he's like either your savior or your he's either, the big bad wolf, or you know the hero of the story, and, he plays both of those roles for different people who are observing the same story. And but the problem is he, his um his role in the story, or his character in the story, is being written out, inevitably, because of the kind of the way that the medium that the story lives on, which is, um, the political governing, um, story that we are all kind of like living in. Okay, so now that the Trump thing is kind of going away, like I feel like we're kind of in like a desert portion of the story, and so there are different things that are trying to not necessarily shape the the explicit narrative, but they're trying to shape the color of the story right now, right? So what I mean by that is things like, when I hear about, and I really only capture, or encounter these narratives, via thumbnail or video title. I try not to, like, I know almost nothing about the wars that are going on. I know almost nothing about the kind of like key players and all these different narratives. I know almost nothing about them, but I only know like a surface level, because I really don't want to, dive into those stories too much. Although I am diving in enough to where I can get a sense of, I am experiencing some aspect of the story. Rigsby, come here. All right. So when I think about this, I think about the like the there's a tone to the story right now. This the collective narrative that we're, kind of caught up in is not necessarily the story itself, but it's the tone shaping of the story, the color of the story, the what genre of the excuse me, the genre is being built out. So I think about um, um, kind of the dystopian nature of things. So different characters you have are things like AI. You have the Patel um, leaked emails, whatever that is. Um, you have um, obviously the Epstein stuff. You have these missing or murdered scientists. You have the Nancy, whatever her, the lady who is missing. You have all these different kinds of things, and what they are doing is shaping your posture towards the story. Now, I don't know what the story or the narrative is going to be, in a year from now. I mean, you had, Charlie Kirk stuff. I mean, you had all these just different kind of like really malevolent um, colors that are being painted right now. And that is potentially a very lucrative marketplace for the powers and principalities. So it's kind of like, and then like, so those, let's all say those are those aspects. I'm not saying like those people. I'm not saying like I'm not even saying like somebody like Patel is like the antagonist. I'm saying what's happened in his story, in his own personal story, is a color in the story that's shaping the tone. That idea, like those powers and principalities, those are the antagonists. Then you have the protagonists, which are like the people who are kind of, there's a narrative about like people coming back to Christ, or the church is kind of, yes, the church is in shambles in many ways, but also there's a growing kind of insurgence in interest that people are taking in the church in general. You have all these kind of religious undertones that are happening. So it's a very religious story, and so how to discern from, how to discern. We stepped out of an age of truth. I think the last genre that we were living in was a forensic genre. Maybe that's the way of thinking about it. Really, like a genre of truth. We have to have the truth about this, and what is truth and what isn't truth, and all this different kind of stuff. And so that chapter, or that particular story, is closing, and now we're stepping into a different genre. And I think it's it's a story. It's a genre of, it's a mystery. We're walking into a mystery. So it's not about truth. It's about it's a very woo-ish story. And so there's my little rambling on that. I'm going to end this now. Like your thoughts, if you like. Have a good one.